Hi, welcome to the Not Your Typical Wellness podcast with your host, Anna and Ashley. We are acupuncturists, moms, and friends, here to put it all on the table. Learn and laugh with us as we explore the world of holistic health and discover the tools required to be happy, healthy, and mostly whole.
Hi, this is Ashley. On today's show, we're going to talk to you about how acupuncture can help you conceive, whether you're trying to do it naturally or with IVF. And then we'll share with you a little bit about our own fertility journeys. And you have a fertility journey to share.
I sure do.
Pregnant.
I have
How was
been
that
pregnant.
journey for you?
Frankly, it was difficult. So now I know that infertility impacts, 12% of the world's population and is a growing problem all over the world. But at the time when I was trying to get pregnant, I felt extremely isolated. I felt like I was the only one. It seemed like everybody was getting pregnant around me. It felt like every celebrity was pregnant. I really struggled with feelings of failure, feelings of what's wrong with my body, grief. I mean, every time I would get my period, I would cry for 48 hours afterwards. I really struggled.
No, Anna, let me just interject, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said you felt alone, but you're not alone. Mm-mm. This is a common problem. This is a big problem for lots of women. So what are some of the numbers on that? We have some info about that. It's because it's huge. The numbers are huge, and they're growing every year, right? It's shocking.
Yeah.
How many women struggle?
Yeah. 8 to 12% of men and women. So, I feel like infertility gets painted as a female problem, but both men and women are starting to have problems with getting pregnant, and it's growing, and depending on your age range, it will be better or worse.
Right.
So, 12% of the population struggles with infertility, and infertility is defined by Western medicine as not being able to conceive after a year.
Right. Right. So it's very common though. And I think this happened with you. This happened with me, with many people. It takes months and it can be very frustrating. And I feel like once we decide that we're ready to have a baby, we want to have a baby yesterday.
Exactly.
Right? It's like we spend our whole lives like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, doing everything we can, right? You get all these messages, don't get pregnant. And then all of a sudden it's like time and we're like, no,
Oh my God. I mean, my public school sex education made it seem like if you looked at a penis, you were going to get pregnant. They were like, don't even look at it. Don't even look at it. You're going to get instantly pregnant. So then
That's you touch the boys at the dance, pregnant.
Yeah, you're pregnant, bitch. Excuse my language, but so it's not as easy as it makes it sound. You can actually only get pregnant. Did you know this, Ashley, for 48 hours out of the month? I bet you knew that already.
I probably, I mean, I went deep. I went deep when I was trying to get pregnant myself, but I forgot that statistic. And that's, wow, 48 hours.
Because you're
obviously that in the sex ed.
No, they don't tell you that because they don't want you to try and play the odds there. But
right. You don't know which 48 hours they assume.
Unless you're tracking your fertility.
Cycle.
Here's another thing. When I first started trying to get pregnant, I had a very consistent period. So I thought to myself, well, this will be very easy. I was so naive. But what I was doing in the beginning is I was just putting my period into an app that would track the time, and they would give me an estimated time of ovulation and an estimated time of my period. So ovulation is obviously that 48 hours where you can get pregnant, right? Turned out that even though my period has been extremely consistent since a young age, that I was not ovulating at the time that the app was anticipating. So it's really important, if you want to try to get pregnant, to add biomarkers into your tracking. Whether you do it manually or you put it into an app, you need to be taking your temperature. You need to be checking your cervical mucus. You need to be, if you want to, you can check your cervix. Your cervix will change shape over the course of your period, or over the course of your cycle.
It'll soften.
So the lesson that I learned is you cannot just say, okay, well, I have a consistent period. Let me just track my period and then I'll have sex, when the app says it's supposed to be.
Right. And, I mean, you could try that. It just might make things a little bit harder, and it might take you a little bit longer. It might become more frustrating. So like, why not throw in, like you said, the biomarkers? And what you mean by biomarkers, you mean tracking right temperature, basal body temperature throughout the cycle. And if you've ever done this, you can graph your temperature every single morning. And then you look at these graphs of your cycle, and you can see when your body temperature goes down and when it comes up. And then, based on those changes, when you're ovulating, a little bit more specific, right? Mm-hmm. Ovulation times. And then what was the other thing that you said? What did you do? You didn't chart your cycle, right, Anna? You used something more technologically advanced.
I did. I'm basically a human from the future. I used a wristband, an app wristband that would take my temperature for me, take my breathing rate, tell me how much I slept, et cetera, and then I would upload that information into the app in the morning, and that would track my charting for me. So here's the trick about the basal body temperature. You need to take it after having slept 5 hours. So if you're like me and you wake up at like 5 and you have to pee, and you get back in bed, you sleep for another 2 hours, you need to take your temperature before you get out of bed and pee and write it down. And when I would do that, and I'd wake up at 5 or, sometimes 4:30 very early, I would start to stress about my fertility. I'd write down my temperature. I'd say, am I ovulating? Is this the right time? Did I write it down right? Did I take the temperature right? And it just really affected my sleep. So instead, I just did the app. I did the bracelet in the app, which took my temperature for me. I uploaded it, and then it would give you a window of time that you were fertile and a window of time that you were not fertile. And actually, it's great for birth control, for preventing pregnancy. If you're interested in that, it works both ways. It tells you when to have sex or when not to have sex.
Yeah,
but you charted it the old-fashioned way. You wrote it down, right?
I did. I had just a thermometer that goes under your tongue. I kept it right by my bed. I had a little chart that I printed out, just a blank chart, with little square for each day of the month. And I printed it out, had it with a pencil right next to my bed. And, there were some days when I did like what you were talking about, where you have to wake up, before it's actually time to get up to pee, and then you go back to sleep, and then you wonder like, ooh, is it going to be okay? I figured, it doesn't happen all the time, so it would probably sort itself out. And, it did. I was able to get a pretty accurate graph of my cycle and my cycle changes. And if you're not familiar with basal body temperature charting or charting your cycle, well, first of all, there's much more information online. But in general, the idea is that in the first half of your cycle, your body temperature is significantly lower. And then as in the second half of your cycle, it's higher. And we all know that ovulation is typically in the middle of your cycle, and it varies by a few days based on you. But you can see there's a shift in your temperature, and so you watch for this shift. And what actually happens when right before you ovulate, you'll notice a dip in your temperature, and then it'll spike up the very next day. So you get this dip and then a spike, and that's kind of the cue that there was an LH surge, and that you're hopefully releasing a healthy follicle, and it's time to go for it.
Yeah,
your
ovulation.
48 hours.
Yeah, ovulation means the egg has left the station and is floating down and is ready to meet the sperm.
That's right. That's right.
Here's another thing. Let's talk about the old wives' tales about when you're supposed to be having sex, right?
Ooh, good.
So
old wives.
They said that if you read the internet, God help you if you read the internet, but, they'll say, oh, you need to have sex every other day if you want to get pregnant every other day. Okay. Or you need to have sex every day. Well, I was post 35 when I was trying to get pregnant. I started at 34. I don't think I got pregnant until 37-ish. I can't remember exactly now. My brain is mush. But if you're in your mid-30s and you're working full-time, or you're going to school full-time like I was and working, do you want to have sex every day? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And if you do, please, call us, right?
Please call us and give us some inspiration for our lives.
Give us some advice.
But the reality is if you're and here's the other thing. If your husband's sperm is healthy, then it's okay to have that much sex. But the reality is there's only 48 hours that you can get pregnant. And so what you should be doing is charting your cycle and having sex 3 or 4 days before you ovulate and then the day of ovulation, because sperm can last in the human body, in the female body, for how long? 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want is that egg to release and there be a team of sperm waiting.
That's right.
You know?
And the strongest team player
survives.
Will meet the egg. Yeah.
Yes.
And then let's just hit on cervical mucus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many of us had never even considered cervical mucus? Have you? Had you?
No, absolutely not. No.
I mean, when did we ever learn about cervical mucus?
I mean,
the name isn't very charming, is it?
No.
Well, okay. So, but this is another really nice little, I mean, these are just like easy at-home things that you can do, right?
Right.
Kind of increase your chances of knowing like when is it the right time. Obviously you can also do ovulation tests, but like you stack the cards in your favor, right? So cervical mucus, when the mucus inside of your vagina becomes like egg whites and you can access it with your fingers.
Yep.
Like just, go in and get a little.
Yeah.
And it will actually become sort of like stringy, opaque, like egg white-like.
Yep.
Shockingly similar to egg whites. And when you see that, it's just another cue.
It's
like, okay, the body is primed. The body is ready.
Yep.
And that is actually supposed to create a really hospitable environment for sperm. That's the reason for the change in the cervical mucus. It's like a little boat for the sperm to take the team.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That type of cervical mucus is ideal for the sperm to swim in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they like love each other, the sperm and that mucus.
Yeah. Good friends.
Yeah. Good friends. But the other thing I would like to say is, I was doing a lot of acupuncture. I was taking a lot of herbal medicine. My husband was on supplements. And those all impacted me. I think I read somewhere that acupuncture alone increases your egg production rate by 50%. Did you know that?
Wow.
And I'll put all the links to all our studies in the show notes and stuff like that. But, that made a huge, that made a huge impact. And, and then I also gave up coffee and started drinking tea because there have been studies that show switching. It's not even the caffeine level, but just switching from coffee to tea will also help you get pregnant.
And that's probably tea has more antioxidants.
They're not sure yet. Exactly. We don't know yet, but that's the idea.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, if that was the case, like you can probably do things with your diet too. We know that's not probably, but you certainly can improve your diet and by improve, I mean, just eat real food, like as much as possible. Fresh, whole food is helpful. And so how long had you been trying? Take us through it though, Anna. Like, so you were how old when you started trying?
I think I was around 34, late 34, close to 35.
Okay.
Well,
and so you were doing
it took us 3 years to get pregnant. We went to a fertility specialist after about a year of trying and got blood work done, all that sort of stuff. And we were pushed very strongly towards IVF. Because I was, I guess 35 at the time we went to the fertility specialist. I wasn't quite ready, like emotionally, mentally, physically, financially to do IVF. And we discovered that, my husband had low motility, quote, normal, but low. Let me tell you something. If you go to the doctor and they tell you your husband's sperm is, quote, low, but normal, that's something that you and your husband needs to start taking supplements for.
Period. You need to address that. Right.
you need to address that right away. And there are a lot of really great over-the-counter supplements that help. So we can put some links to some literature that you guys can read about. I'm not going to recommend any specific supplements, but there's a book written by fertility doctors who address this issue that we can link in the show notes. But that was really significantly downplayed by the fertility doctor. And I was very strongly encouraged to get IVF. But again, like I said, I wasn't emotionally or mentally prepared to do that at that point. So I just decided to throw the kitchen sink at it and get acupuncture, get herbal medicine, and do what I could to conceive naturally. I wish that the doctor had taken more time to ask us, like, how often are you having sex? When are you having sex? How are you tracking your cycle? Because at that point, I still wasn't using the biomarkers. So it took me another 6 months. So this is now a year and 6 months in before I realized I was ovulating at a different time. And so we were never having sex at the right time.
Right.
So it's like, that's just dumb. Like, I don't mean to like hate on myself, but I mean, that's just like wasted time. So then it was another year and a half from that point forward when I was confident we were having the right amount of sex, having sex at the right time, all of that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. That then the acupuncture and the herbal medicine for both my husband and myself kicked in. And then we were finally able to conceive. So
now were you doing acupuncture the whole time?
No.
Okay. You brought that in towards the end.
Towards the last year and a half. And then I started to get acupuncture. Mm-hmm. Because I was creeping closer to 40. So, it was staring down the barrel of IVF.
So when you went to this fertility specialist, and, let's be honest, it's a big business, fertility.
It was a baby factory.
Clinics.
It was in Beverly Hills. It was fancy. It was Beverly Hills. It was expensive. We got 15 minutes with the doctor. We spent thousands of dollars on tests.
Right. And so, I mean, I can, it's not shocking that you were sort of pushed in one direction, which is a perfectly fine direction if that's your choice and if that's the direction you choose to go, but you weren't trying to go that direction. So you were actually looking for more help, more support, to try and conceive naturally. Mm-hmm. Right. And you weren't given that. So what did you do? I mean, did you go to the internet? Did you?
I freaked out.
That must have been really stressful. I bet. Yeah.
I freaked out. I freaked out. I cried a lot. I threw a lot of temper tantrums. I mean, I hate to say, I don't mean it like that, but I just thought like, I think what a lot of women think, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. I've wanted to be a mom my whole life. Why is this so difficult? Why is this the hand that I'm being dealt? What's wrong with my body? And I did eventually, but here's the other thing. I was and I wonder if other women have experienced this. I feel like they have. There's so much in the atmosphere. There's so much in society about, once you're over 30, your uterus is a trash bag. Forget about trying to get pregnant. You got to freeze your eggs. Like you're
geriatric.
You're donezo. And so I was like already expecting to have fertility issues, even though I have no history of that in my family. My mom got pregnant with me, with my younger brother when she was 36. I don't have any history of that, but I was already expecting somebody to tell me your body is broken.
Because the messaging is like, you're toast. There's no chance. You're washed up.
You're donezo.
Forget about it. Yeah.
And so I was so already like anxiety ridden, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff.
And that's just a tiny sliver of the bigger issue in our society. And that's a different topic altogether. But right.
Exactly.
We're all stressed. We all have so much anxiety, and not to take away from your stress and anxiety in the time, but I'm saying that you aren't alone in this either, right? Because I think that has so much to do with, why so many people struggle.
And the reality
is fertility.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. And the reality is all the time that we were trying to get pregnant, my stress level was through the flipping roof because we were in school full time. I was also working full time. And there are a lot of studies that stress significantly impact conception. So,
right. And egg quality, right? So we know that stress can disrupt hormones, and hormones are crucial in producing and releasing a healthy egg. So it's very important, right, to keep stress levels low.
It's extremely important. And stress can also impact implantation, and the blood flow to the uterus. I mean, like I said, we can list some show notes, and then once you start, quote unquote, struggling with infertility, they did a study in Psychology Today in 2010 that stress levels of women with infertility are equivalent to that of women with cancer, AIDS, or heart disease. So it's shocking. Like, even if you weren't stressed before, once you have trouble getting pregnant, then it's very...
Yeah, so it becomes this vicious cycle, right? And then it's just hard to get out of that stress loop. And acupuncture can play a huge role in helping you break that cycle, right? Because even if you can't mentally get a hold of it, the acupuncture needles will actually act on your parasympathetic nervous system and upregulate that to help calm you down, break the cycle. So it's a great solution, right? It's a great option for stress-induced anything.
Exactly. Stress-induced anything. It physically forces you to de-stress whether you want to or not. And that's the beauty of acupuncture. And my favorite part is when I would tell people I was struggling with infertility, everybody would say, oh, just relax. Do you know what happens when you tell somebody to relax? They do not relax.
Twice as stressed.
Yes, twice as stressed. So,
right.
So I've had a lot of friends and, I call them sisters. It's sisters in the infertility struggle who have decided to go forward with IVF and, are fortunate that they were able to have successful pregnancies as a result. And thank God we have IVF because
I know
there's so many wonderful mothers out there who are mothers because of the IVF process.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing.
Little humans.
Perfect little humans.
Perfect little humans.
Perfect little monsters who are going to destroy your
little monsters who will destroy everything you have.
So it's an excellent resource. It's an excellent tool. I think there's just like shades of gray that women can empower themselves because it's like even if you have, more complicated fertility issues, there are a lot of things that you can do to even support the IVF process that I don't think women are even educated about.
Right. Because where would they get that education? That's the problem. I feel like there's not enough information. There are not enough resources around, other natural ways to support either natural pregnancy or, if you're using IVF, it doesn't just have to be the IVF protocol. You can also supplement in other ways. You can boost your chances.
Right. Because, there have been studies that have shown that acupuncture will increase the success rates of IVF by 20% or more, which is huge.
That's significant. That's significant.
Huge. But
absolutely.
Actually, your fertility journey wasn't a walk in the park. Am I right?
No. Well, much like what you were saying with, you came into it in a state of great stress and sort of you were already anticipating troubles before they started, which doesn't help anything. I was anticipating trouble because of a diagnosis I received years before. So we started trying to get pregnant when I was 30. Let me do the math. You had to try and do this math too. It's just not hard math, but
time doesn't exist anymore between COVID and babies. There is no such thing as time.
There's no time. I was 35. So I was right. I was technically in that geriatric range, right? Toast.
Yeah, exactly.
Washed up. So 35, also in the middle of my master's program with you, studying Chinese medicine. I had received a diagnosis years before because I was interested in finding out if I could possibly get pregnant. And that's because all my life I had very irregular periods. I tried to take birth control in college. Well, I took birth control in college, and it made me have a period for like 40 days in a row or something.
Oh my
God. Was crazy. Yeah. And so I stopped that, and then I got an IUD. And so I stopped having a period altogether for 5 years. And then when that came out, my periods never really regulated. So I had this history of very irregular periods, very light periods. At one point, one doctor diagnosed me with PCOS. So moving down the line, I went to a reproductive endocrinologist when I was about 27 or 28. And I got all the testing done. And I was like, look, I'm not ready to have a child right this moment, but I am curious to see kind of where I stand in the matter. Like, will I be able to, because of this complicated history I've had? And so she did all the tests and, genetic testing, ultrasounds, blood work. And her diagnosis was premature ovarian failure. And she said that I would most likely not be able to get pregnant naturally, that I would probably need to go the IVF route.
And so, wait, how old were you when this happened?
27 or 28.
Wow.
Which, I mean, yeah, that's
young.
I was young. I was otherwise very healthy, I thought. So unexpected and kind of devastating. So I just sort of put that on the back burner. I was like, well, it's not time to try right now. This is terrible information, but I don't really know what to do with this right now. So I'm just going to put it aside. So fast forward, 35, like I said, in this program. And, after 2 years of Chinese medicine school, I feel like I learned so much about this incredible medicine, about our bodies, about the resilience of the human body. Like, I know that just because we are in one state of health at one point in our lives, that I believe it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to remain in that state, right? We can heal. Our bodies can come back. We can change things with our lifestyle and our diet and things like acupuncture and herbs. So I thought, well, let's give it another go, right? Well, let's give it a go because we hadn't tried yet, but we decided that we're probably at the end of the window if it was going to happen. So it was time to try. So we started trying to get pregnant in May.
Naturally.
Naturally. Right. Okay. Right. And so, So I still wanted to say, I was like, it's easier to just try naturally, right? It's free. It's something we can do at home on our own schedule. Well, mostly on our own schedules, but so I thought, let's just try naturally and see if we can. And if we can't, then we'll look at all the other options. So I started getting acupuncture twice a week. I was also taking herbs, drinking herbal tea. And I found a supervisor recommended a really, really great book called The Infertility Cure by Randy Lewis. We'll put that in the notes, but she outlines lots of really wonderful supplements for improving egg quality, kind of depending on your condition, for improving egg quality. Also, there are supplements for sperm, right? For boosting the motility and health of sperm. So I sort of came right into it with the kitchen sink. Right. I knew, I anticipated a challenge. I didn't know if we'd even be able to do it. And so I sort of just came in with all the tools that I had. I cut out, like you, coffee. I switched to tea. I was meditating very, very regularly. I was exercising, but not extreme exercising, like very balanced exercising. Lots of walking, lots of yoga, lots of stress management, like very active stress management. I said the acupuncture, which I think was huge because that's, tackling so much. And I actually got pregnant the very first month that we started trying.
That's
so
incredible.
We started trying in May. And so now this is me coming in, 7 years after this premature ovarian failure diagnosis, saying,
Wow.
you can't get pregnant without IVF. And so I get, boom, first month pregnant.
Wow.
But then, and so I'm also tracking everything. So I was doing my basal body temperature charting. And I was taking ovulation tests just to double confirm. So I would see it on the chart. Like I would see the dip and the spike in my temperature. The cervical mucus was egg white. Then I would take the ovulation test, confirm. Okay, let's go. So I get pregnant. But because I was tracking everything, checking my temperature, it went up, and then it dipped, and I had a miscarriage that very first.
Right, because the temperature needs to stay elevated for the pregnancy to take.
Exactly. I was at a U2 concert with my parents. And I started feeling really terrible, and I went home, and then the next morning I got up and my temperature had plummeted, and then I started bleeding. And so I knew, and it was a chemical miscarriage. It was a chemical pregnancy, right? It was a super early. If I hadn't been tracking everything, I would have just thought it was a period, maybe with some extra cramping. So that was really, you get very excited. You get so excited, so hopeful. And then as, anyone who's ever gone through a miscarriage, it can be devastating, right?
Sure can. It's a loss.
Super upsetting. It's a loss.
Don't let anybody tell you it's not a loss. It's a loss.
No, it's a loss. So, however, I kept the hope because I know that an early miscarriage, a miscarriage when you're trying, can almost pave the way for success in the coming months. It, boosts your fertility chances.
Interesting.
According to everything I had read, everything I had heard. I mean, there are forums about this. I actually don't know if there are studies that back this up, proper studies, but I had heard so much about it's very common to have a miscarriage early on when you're trying, and then you get pregnant like the next month or 2 months later. Sort of clears out your uterus, clears everything out, tells your body that it's possible, that this is happening, and it kind of primes you. So June, we tried again, nothing. My period was very irregular. July, we tried again, nothing. And then, but my period had regulated. And then in August, the pregnancy test was positive.
Wow.
And then I was really paranoid about, having another miscarriage and or is it real? And so I bought one of those like big bulk packs of pregnancy tests. So I had like 50 of them or something. And I was doing like 3 a day. And I kept every one, and I had them out on my table. I just lined them up, and I watched the line just get darker until it was like as dark as the line could possibly be. And then I took it upon myself to go get blood work done and test my HCG levels. And HCG is the pregnancy hormone. And so this number should rise, and it should start to double every few days if you're pregnant and it's a healthy pregnancy. And so this is even before I had gone to the doctor. So and you can order these labs.
I was going to say, how did you get this? How did you?
Yeah, you go online, you go to Quest or LabCorp in California, at least here. And you can just buy the test, an HCG test, and then you just go to a local lab and you take them the receipt for the test you purchased, and they'll draw your blood and they'll send the results.
Wow.
So if it's something that's not very complicated, like this was just a straightforward, a single number, I could interpret that. I could read that. So, I felt empowered to be able to just do that on my own.
It's so interesting how different you and I are, because I'm so avoidant. I'm like, don't chart, don't read anything, just ignore it, put your head in the sand, and magic will happen. And you're much more like, let me get in the weeds, let me do the data. It's just like such an interesting way to handle, you know? So
in a way, ignorance might be bliss, you know?
I don't know.
I might have had too much information.
Yeah.
But sure enough, the number was doubling. In fact, the number was like skyrocketing. And so I can go into a rabbit hole on that. Like too high is not necessarily good. That can also mean bad things. So anyway, I finally went to the doctor, and eventually it was, I guess, the first ultrasound, and he was listening for a heartbeat, and he was like, there's a heartbeat. He's like, and there's the other heartbeat. I was like, uh-oh, what do you mean, my heartbeat? And he was like, no, the other heartbeat. There are two heartbeats. I was like, what?
And it was
and he was
twins.
like, twins.
You were very pregnant.
Too.
You weren't just a little pregnant. You were
I was double pregnant.
You were double pregnant.
Yeah. Thanks, Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
And supplements and all the things. So yeah, you know, success. It worked. And
that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. What about, like, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's struggling with fertility, and she was like, the hardest part about it is I feel like all the work is on me. She's like, you know, my husband is very supportive, and, you know, it couldn't be a better husband. She's like, but I have to get the test. I have to chart my cycle. I have to go to the doctor. I have to do this. I have to do that. And I mean, boy,
and it doesn't really change when you're
pregnant,
a mother. And that's not to say that partners aren't, you know, partners can be so supportive and so helpful, and it really takes a team. But like at the end of the day, just more falls on your shoulders.
They're not carrying the baby.
It's the woman, it's your body, it's your, you know, you're carrying it. Exactly. And then I think also, you know, men don't understand as much in general or know. I mean, but why would they? They don't have to. They don't need. They don't have a uterus. They don't have. You know, they don't menstruate. Like, they're not tracking cycles. Like, sure. It does feel like a burden at times, for sure. But you know, maybe we flip the script on it and say it's incredible what our bodies can do as women. Right? We've got these powers. We can grow humans. Like, that's absolutely remarkable. So,
and for all of those of you
understand.
And for all of you out there right now who are thinking, but I can't grow human, I haven't gotten pregnant, there is hope. Do not despair. Like, do not despair. And there is hope.
And grow humans can mean inside your body or outside of your body when you're raising one that, you know, came from another place.
Exactly.
You know, women are mothers, whether you have a child, a human child, whether you have a pet, whether you have a plant, you know.
The other thing I feel like I really learned in my fertility journey is the babies choose when they want to come, how they want to come. And there might be a baby out there looking for you who came from another person's body, but they want you to be their mom. And their little souls will orchestrate that, like, no matter what. You know, and like I have friends who adopted, and that's their perfect child for them. And it couldn't have been any other way. And it just was the way it was exactly meant to be, you know? So it's like, I think there's a lot of emphasis when you're trying to get pregnant. It can be very easy to be hyper focused on, like, okay, well, I need my body to do this. And I went down the IVF route, and like, you know, it didn't work or whatever. But like, that child that's meant to be your child will come to you. And it's either going to come to you naturally, IVF, or through adoption or whatever. But that child I really firmly believe the child chooses the parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a little bit, it comes back around to what we were chatting about right before the show, Anna. You know, it's that surrender. Like, if we can let go just a little and surrender to, you know, whatever outcome will be, then, you know, maybe it's a little bit less painful. You know, we don't have to latch on so hard to, it has to come from my body, or it has to just be natural. It has to be this way or that way. You know, it can be in whatever way it comes. Exactly. And that's just right.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Couldn't agree
more. So surrendering to the process. I finally got to have a conversation with Isla and Seneca. That's my daughter, Isla, and my son, Seneca. We were talking about who they were before they were Isla and Seneca the other night.
What'd they say?
And Isla said she was a star.
Oh, wow.
And Seneca said, they both said they were stars. I think we must have been talking about the universe. But anyway, Isla was like, I was very excited for you and Papa to become my parents. I was like, did you choose us? She was like, of course. So she told me herself that she chose us.
That's so
as a little
sweet.
Star.
That's so sweet. That, you know, that makes sense. When I look at her, I think she looks like a little star.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a little star.
So we hope this episode helps you in your journey wherever you may be, gives you some hope, gives you some comfort. You are not alone if you're struggling with infertility, or if you're afraid you might eventually struggle with infertility.
Exactly. If it's proven, if it's anticipated, there's so many resources. There's so many options. You know, doctors have a lot of answers, but not all the answers. It's not the full story. Just, you know, a lab report is not the full story. Your current condition is not the full story. There's so much more that can be done. Mm-hmm. So don't give up.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Stay tuned for our listener question segment, where Ashley and I answer your questions about anything and everything. Hi, and we're back for another listener mailbag. Listener questions have been emailed in, and Ashley and I are going to answer them to the best of our ability.
Okay, Anna, your turn. Our next question is, what do you do in your free time?
Well, I like to do projects around the house, and currently I am attempting to update the vanity bathroom space, and I texted my husband the other day and I said, well, I've watched a 3-minute video and I now feel qualified to replace the faucet in our bathroom. And that's what I'm going to attempt to do this week. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
3-minute Home Depot video. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, maybe Home Depot has an interest in making this look so easy, right? Because they want to sell you a faucet and they want to get you high on this belief that you can do it. And let me tell you something. I am smoking what they are selling. I feel fully confident that I can do this. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Anna.
Thank you.
I believe in you, Anna.
Next up for you, who were you in a past life, Ashley? And you can take that as freaky deaky or as straight and narrow as you like to. Who were you in a past life?
I wish I knew who I was. You know, I'll answer 2 ways. If we go back before I was me, before I was in this body, I've had my Akashic records read.
Oh, wow.
And I was told that I was a sailor.
Interesting.
A female sailor. Maybe I was a pirate. I don't know, but I spent time on ships on the water.
Wow.
For what it's worth. I feel like that's super cool. I'm into that.
That's
I love
very
travel. Cool. I've always wanted to sail. I have this desire in this life to learn to sail. And so maybe there's something about that, like that connection between what I did before I was me.
Wow. So. Wow. That's very interesting. I'm terrified of sailing, so I am very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah. Just something about the wind in my sails, you know, the freedom, the open water. I'm kind of terrified of the ocean at the same time. So I don't know. It's a strange.
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like if society collapses, you're the type of person that survives. You know, like you're the person that lives in water.
That's a great compliment, Anna. That's like the best compliment you could give me.
I'm going to hitch my wagon to you. If everything collapses, I'm going to search you out and then just be your bud.
Based on your sweet home skills, I think that you would survive as well.
Thank you. Oh yeah, we would have running water. It would be totally janky. and not look very good.
We could get to Home Depot.
Yes,
get a faucet.
Let me ask you this.
Install it somewhere.
I could. If society collapses, will Home Depot still be up and running? That's my first question. Probably
very
not.
Important. Very. So my other answer to that is before I was an acupuncturist practicing Chinese medicine, I had many lives. I was a teacher in Korea. I worked in restaurants for many years at many different levels. I worked in marketing. I worked in animation production.
Wow.
I was a personal trainer for a few minutes.
Wow.
I think I got them all.
Wow.
Anyway, clearly I was searching, for my thing, and the path was winding.
I mean, it sure is.
Everything I did made sense at the time, and there was a very logical explanation for why I started doing that, but it's just so crazy to go back and talk about that and think it just sounds like, whoa, what else? Add something else, throw something else in the mix. Like, why not?
Right. I mean, hey, if we keep doing this podcast another 10 years, you might be saying sailor.
Maybe so.
Maybe
so. That'd be great.
Maybe
we'll be doing the podcast from the sailboat.
I mean, good for you, because there's so much pressure in society. Like, pick a job, go to college, you get a degree, and you stick to that degree. You become an accountant, and you die an accountant.
Yeah, I was adamantly averse to that specific thing, that very statement that you made when I graduated from college. I was like, I will not go get a job. I am going to go traveling. I don't know what I want to do or be. I was forced to pick a major. I majored in journalism at UT Austin. And when I finished, I was like, done. I am out of here. Screw you guys. I'm going to go see the world. I am not going to sit in an office in front of a computer slaving away for someone else. Just not doing that. And for better or worse, now of the people who sucked it up and got the job and did their time early on, like when they were younger, like most people I know who went a more traditional route are like in a really good place now and very secure, and like maybe they own homes and, they like have the freedom they want. And so they've got, it's a different life for sure. And it's not all bad, but at the time I was like, not for me.
Wow, that is really, I'm very impressed. This whole conversation has just really blown me out of the water.
Hey, thanks, Anna. What about you? Who were you in a past life?
Well, I had the same windy road that you did, with the exception of I just spent the whole time beating myself up for the fact that I wouldn't just fit in a box and get that office job. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas you were like, I'm not going to do it. I was like, why can't I be normal? Just be normal. Just fit in a box. So I was a yoga teacher for a period of time. And then, of course, I worked in a restaurant for a period of time. And then I became an attorney for a period of time. I was a lawyer. And
no big deal. Just went out and became an attorney.
No big deal. No big deal at all. And then I quit that, and I was a wardrobe stylist, which means that I put clothes on models for magazine shoots, and then I also assisted red carpet stylists. So I helped red carpet stylists dress celebrities, and then and then I finally went to Chinese medicine school, and then I got into Theta Healing and energy work, and now I'm here, and I'm a podcaster now. Can we add that to the list?
Yeah.
Put it on the list.
Absolutely.
So, but I think, like you said, everything seemed logical at the time, and also I would say that every skill that I've picked up has served me in whatever future job I have. I mean, there's no job where I don't use my tool bag of skills. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. I understand completely. And I think the same. I have drawn so much from everything I've done working in restaurants, service industry has added so much value to my life and my tool bag.
Yep.
I mean, learning to work with people, you know, and managing that high intensity environment and understanding service, customer service, and learning how to, I learned how to cook. I feel like from working in restaurants for so long, you know, you watch the chefs cooking and tasting food. It just added so much. I think it's super valuable. And I think everyone should work in the service industry at some point.
I totally agree. I think that should be a law. You know how some countries mandate military service? We should mandate restaurant service.
Yes. That would be so much better. People would have more empathy for each other.
Oh, I mean, that is my one wish for this world. So that's all of our listener questions for this time.
Those were great.
Those were great. Thank you guys for sending them in. If anybody has any more questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, please reach out to us on all the socials. We are available and here and want to hear from you. And we hope you have a great week. All right, folks, that's all for this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to hanging out with you again in the next episode. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And thanks again.